What is up, everybody? It is Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show. As always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Thank you for taking time to stop by the Dr. Vibe Show, the home of epic conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations. I'm gonna say just one more thing. 2018 award winner, innovation award winner, from the Canadian Media Association. And you know what? I've got great news to start this conversation off. It's another epic one. We are broadcasting on Get Vocal. We are broadcasting on YouTube. We are broadcasting on Facebook Live.
Yay!
And we're also broadcasting audio stream wise on, I forget, there's so many, Mixler. So I remembered everything. But one of the things I always enjoy is getting knowledge from these two outstanding Black women. I emphasize Black women, Dr. Chetachi and Leah Miller, otherwise known as Encyclopedia Brown. And it's so good to see them again. I don't get enough of them, but they do have their lives. And one thing I got to ask Leah right off the bat, how was date night?
Oh, fun. Super fun. And something that does not happen often enough, but it was really fun. It was just nice to be out.
With the new earrings too?
Yes, with the new earrings. And you actually read. That's good to know. New earrings, favorite dress. Finally, the hair was long enough to do something with it besides his puff.
I can't relate. I can't relate.
Well, I'll live for you. You can live vicariously through my hair experiences.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Of course, we're blessed to always have. What's been going on, Dr. Tachi?
The same old thing that I do every night, try to take over the world. I don't know if you catch that reference from Pinky and the Brain. Yeah. So.
Well, I'd just like to thank both of you for taking time out of your positive, productive schedules. Also want to thank already Herbie is in the room. So thanks, Herbie, on the Get Vocal platform for joining.
Yeah, Herbie.
We haven't been together for a little bit, so just want to get some catching up on what's been going on with each one of you ladies.
Leah,
go ahead, Tachi.
I'm deferring to you because I know there's so much more. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I don't know where to start, so I'll give a little bit so I have more to share later. But I have two kind of big news items. The first one is that I just found out the other day that Madame Noir is bringing me on as a writer for them.
Whoa!
Wow!
Yeah. So I'm really excited about it. Really excited about it. I just got the official word like Friday last week. And so they're sending a hard copy contract. So I'm just waiting for that. So then once the ink is dry, you'll start seeing Leah World Traveler, AKA Leah Miller, AKA Encyclopedia Brown, all over Madame Noir's page.
Wow. Congrats. That's really exciting.
Yeah, that is super exciting.
Well, the thing I want to also say too is that please, some people may not know the Madame Noir platform. So could you just give them a little education on it?
So Madame Noir is probably one of the largest, if not the largest, online magazine for women and women of color. Their content ranges from lifestyle, entertainment, family, travel, health and wellness, relationships. Really, it runs the whole gamut of life that everyone deals with the specific intention of being a safe space and a community for Black women among, the women of color. So what they're looking to do by bringing me on is to kind of have me continue to do what I was doing before for Black and Married with Kids and kind of add more parenting and mommy content to the site, which is actually what I really want to talk about because there's other certain areas that I don't really want to get into, like politics, things like that, because of my day job. But I always feel like it's an easy and safe sort of space for me to just talk about parenting because that's, non-job specific. So I'm really excited about that. So one of the things that I'll be doing for Madame Noir will be starting an advice column. So if you have people in your audiences, Dr. Vibe and Dr. Tachi, that are just looking for third-party perspective or just an outside voice, sometimes having that neutral party can sort of get people outside of their own heads to share and add value to a conversation. I welcome people's conversations, things that they're struggling with, and I'll do my best to answer them from my point of view, wearing my social worker's hat with the emphasis on family and child dynamics. So we'll be doing that. And then the second article will be whatever I want to write about. So, but within the mommy content space, but it was really cool because they were just like, we want you to write for us. And I was like, well, I want to write for you. And they were just like, you know, whatever you want to talk about, you know, in terms of the mommy world. And I'm like, that's really broad. So I'm happy that I have some creative license, and that's something that I'm always seeking.
Wow.
That's
yeah. Well, so I'll share in the notes here the website.
Well,
yes.
I can at least say myself, and Tati can say, we knew you when.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, I mean, yes, I'm always telling people that I'm trying to work myself out of my day job and trying to, you know, make my side hustles become my main hustle. So this is a step in that direction.
That's big. I mean.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm excited about it. I'm really excited about it. I mean, I'm super tired right now, so my energy level is not conveying how I feel on the inside, but I am really, really happy. I think it's going to be a great opportunity, and I'm really excited to be a part of that community and to share, you know, some of the goods that Encyclopedia Brown has with a community that I think is receptive and would be kind of mutually beneficial relationship, because I think I have as much to gain from being in that space as I do to give. So
fantastic. Any other bombshells you gonna just?
Yes. Well, I'll just share one because the other two are kind of on the shelf, so I'll save those for another time. Okay. But the second one, which is super exciting, and I haven't made public, so it's going to be made public for the first time on the Dr. Vibe Show, is I'm sure you both have seen and heard all over Facebook about this new company called Urban Intellectuals. Yeah. I mentioned it before, but we never talked much about it. So they have brought me on as a content manager.
Wow.
So I'm writing for them, and I'm going to be managing my own team of writers and kind of elevating the platform to do more than just like historical think pieces, even though that's a large part of what they do, because I mean, their main mission is to educate and empower by kind of filling the void, actually hearkening back to a couple of conversations that we have had recently about gaps in education, gaps in, you know, overall cultural understanding of Black Americans and African diaspora and contributions. That's exactly what this company attempts to address. And again, for me, in a day job where I can't always be my full self, it's nice to have this space where I can be blackety black and unapologetically Black and embracing it and revel in it. Oh, this light. Anyone just forget about that light. So
you're a writer, not a broadcaster. We know. Go ahead.
Exactly. So, you know, you guys know I'm just trying to survive. So I'm excited to do that. So I've been working with them now for about a month, and I am, you know, I'm in the process right now of trying to hire some writers for me to manage, which is crazy because I'm always the one trying to do the writing. So, and then we're moving into other spaces with that company, and I'm really excited about just the possibilities of things that we can do in that space. And considering I'm talking to two educators and two entrepreneurs who are doing many of the same things that Urban Intellectuals wants to amplify and highlight, I wanted to share that with you too before I really shared it with the world, because you know, I definitely want to keep you both in my corner and have you there as resources and see how I can plug you into the things that are happening there and how I can plug them into the things you guys have going on.
Oh, amazing.
Wow. So those are the big things.
I think we can end right, Tachi? Show's over, okay? Really?
So that's my news. That's my big news. Oh. And I did go to my Armenian progress test, in case anyone cared. You know, Armenian has been an ongoing conversation. So I'm happy with where I am, and I'm optimistic that I'll make the goal at the end of my training period.
Wow.
So that just kind of took some of the stress off my shoulders, because Armenian is not easy. It is not for the faint of heart. And this is from someone who studied Arabic. So, I mean, I'm just like, I'm happy with that. And that was Monday, so.
Tachi, no competition. What's been going on in your world?
I have nothing of substance to contribute to this conversation at this time. I mean,
we should rename this "The World Revolves Around Encyclopedia Brown."
Yeah.
In the moment, I mean, ebbs and flows though, because I mean, I've definitely been not having good things happen too.
True.
So, you know, I'm riding the apex right now of the wave, and I'm sure a dip is on its way coming. So, because that's just the way life works.
Wow. It ebbs and flows, but you know, you need that. It reminds you of what you It reminds you of the good things you have.
Exactly.
So
it's true. So, keeps me feeling blessed. It keeps me grateful. Keeps me humble, and it keeps me hungry, because I know it's not guaranteed. And I think as soon as you get complacent, you lose everything.
Sure. Absolutely.
Tachi, anything you want to, what's going on in your world?
You thought I was lying when I said I had nothing of substance to contribute to this conversation. I mean, it's the like I said, it's the same thing I do every night, try to take over the world. So, there are some things that I am working on, which are not concrete yet, but as soon as they are concrete, I will spread the news.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
But you know what? You guys don't need to add anything because y'all are already doing a billion, zillion, million amazing things. So it's like, how can you take more on?
Well,
directing, managing, producing, teaching, voiceovers.
Well, it's like when you ask and when people say, well, such and such is an actor. Why do they now have a clothing line? Oh, and why is this on? Okay. Why do they now have a clothing line? Because you have to have multiple streams of going on at any one time. That is just required in today's day and age. So, yeah, there's always something, always keeping my name at the top of the list. So, yes. Dr. Vibe?
Okay. So let's just thinking off the top of my head. Last week, I was in Ottawa, which is Canada's national capital. I'm based in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And I was asked to lead the dads panel at a national fatherhood conference. So
awesome.
we're 200 people in the room. I led the panel. It appeared to go very well. The conversation was amazing. 3 different fathers in different stages. There was one gentleman, non-melanated, we'll say, who's
non-melanated. Okay.
He's got, has 2 grown-up teenagers. Great. There was another gentleman who was sitting right beside me. He's a French-Canadian background, but lives now in Ottawa. He's a chef with 7 children. And then
God bless him.
Yeah, there was another younger gentleman in his mid-20s who has 2 kids. One of them has autism already.
Oh.
But the conversation was amazing. They had never met each other before, but it was just amazing because they were, for lack of a better term, vibing with each other during the panel discussion. And it was just an amazing thing. And then after that, I was invited to a meeting of about 45 Black entrepreneurs with the National Minister of Small Business to talk about Black entrepreneurship.
That's awesome.
So the nice thing is the 2 events were 5 minutes walk from each other.
That's always nice.
So after the government meeting, they had a little social at a restaurant, which was in the same building. And I said, okay, have some food, shake some hands, do whatever. But then I went back to the father conference because they were having, okay, I'll just put it out there. They were having a Movember night. So Movember was sponsoring a social evening. So I had a 45-minute conversation one-on-one with someone, a key person in the Movember Canada organization. And that is leading to another conversation next week.
Wonderful.
Wow, that's wonderful. Congratulations.
Yes.
So it was, he's an amazing guy. Can't be more than his late 20s, maybe early 30s. And
wow.
His father, who's passed away now, spent 40 years working in a nonprofit. So he's continuing his father's legacy.
Oh, wow. Good stuff.
So I had my 1-pager out, Leah.
Good.
Gave it right to him. And he's, when I spoke with him today, he said, I showed your 1-pager to people in the office and they really want to meet you.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
reminder that I need to do some printing.
So definitely with what you shared, Leah, I have some thoughts, some potential collaborations down the road in regards to what you're doing with Madame Noir, but we'll take that offline.
Okay, yeah. More to come there.
Yeah, and I'm just so pleased that we're broadcasting live. Pat's here, Gabe's here, Herbie's here. Herbie, thank you for sharing it on Twitter. There's so many platforms I'm forgetting now. And also Aisha K. Staggers, who was on between 7 and 8 on my audio side tonight. She's shared it on her Twitter timeline with all her probably about 4,000 followers. So we appreciate that. And some nice things too, and maybe you ladies don't notice, but Get Vocal, you don't see the Get Vocal logo at the bottom anymore.
Yeah. I just noticed that when you mentioned it.
Yeah. And we are now broadcasting in true 720 HD.
Oh,
wow. Glad I have my lights on then.
Okay. So, so they've been working on some improvements. And also, too, I am very blessed, as I told the ladies the last time we were together, Get Vocal is actually promoting my conversations via Facebook.
It's amazing.
So that's another reason why I want a conversation to happen with, I'm going to put it out there with Dr. Tachi and Get Vocal, because I want her content to get promoted by them. But I don't know how it's happening if she's not on Get Vocal, but we'll find a way. I have some ideas, Tachi, on some things.
Maybe one day I'll stop being chopped liver to
No. I think
no, not here. I'm just in general on platforms. It's like, you know how sometimes you do all this stuff and you don't do it for the attention of people. I don't anyway. But sometimes it's like, well, damn, can you at least contact me back when I ask about a technical problem? Not Get Vocal, but like the other platform that I was having a problem with. Nobody said PIM to me. So I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm chopped liver. Thank you very much. So, you start to get this thing of there's a certain echelon of individuals that they choose to deal with, and you're just not one of them.
Clique. But that's why people like yourself and Encyclopedia Brown, I make sure I take you along. I don't leave you behind.
Yeah.
So that's why. And we'll discuss another time. There was a reason why there was a delayed response to your inquiry to Get Vocal, but we can discuss that offline. That actually came up in their town hall meeting about a week ago. So it was addressed.
Okay.
All right. So there you go. After all of that, we've wasted all these people's time saying, get to the conversation topic. Okay, let's get to it. Most of the time, I ask these wonderful ladies about a day or two ahead, what do you want to talk about? And they always come back to me saying, I don't know, got to think. So this is my conversation topic. Doesn't mean I'm going to dominate the conversation, but I thought it'd be a good conversation in the fact that what's going on with the R. Kelly thing and all sexual this and that and the other thing. I'm going, what are Black women afraid of? Because there is this sometimes thing about the strong Black woman. But I heard from many a Black woman, you know what? We're not as always strong as we look on the outside. So I thought I'd let these two beautiful internally and externally Black women have this conversation with me in regards to A, are Black women afraid of anything? And B, what are they afraid of? So I thought, and Tachi said, I love this conversation topic. So Tachi, when I put this out, what was your initial thoughts and why did you want to join this conversation tonight?
I think it's interesting when we talk about fears, because when we talk about fear in the current conversation, at least in the US, and maybe I would venture to say worldwide, the topic is never about what Black women fear. There's this whole conversation now about fear by non-melanated men in terms of fear of losing power, which is why there's this overwhelming growth, which was already there, by the way. It just was like not polite to talk about it. But now, since there is somebody at the helm who deems it okay to talk about such things and even pushes it, now, it's bubbled to the surface. So that's a topic of conversation when we talk about fears of other groups, but it seems nobody gives two damns about what Black women are fearful of. And I think it does stem from, as you were saying, this whole image of Black women as strong. Well, guess what? We have to be strong because nobody else is there to pick up the pieces. So we could sit there and cry and you'll just be sitting there and crying. So you make the conscious decision to, well, all right, come on, got to press on. There's no time for that, no need for that. So we also don't allow ourselves the opportunity to do that. And I think we don't allow ourselves because we're not afforded the opportunity to do that. We don't have the luxury of expressing what we're fearful of because we're not supposed to be afraid of things. So that's what the interesting conversation is, because this is the first time anybody has ever asked, what are Black women afraid of? So thank you, Dr. Vibe.
Oh, much appreciated. Leah?
I mean, as always, I agree with everything that my Sora said. But so I'll just add on that I also think that Black women suffer from not only this perception that we're like super strong, and then we kind of, it's like manifest destiny where people perceive us that way. So it becomes a scenario where we have to be that way. And we are the ultimate survivors. We survive abuse from everyone, including our own men and each other. But I do think that because we're perceived this way, then we're not allowed to be vulnerable. We're not allowed to be weak. We're not allowed to do any of the things that any other normal human being would do. And I think above it all, we kind of put that pressure on ourselves too, because I know and I've seen other scenarios where one of my female friends will be in a moment of weakness and will, seek her own mother's support. And her mother will be like, suck it up, girl, just handle it. You got to do this. I had to do it when I was, in your position. And so we sort of put that pressure on ourselves as well. And so I do think it's refreshing to be asked, what are we afraid of? Because I think we're afraid of a lot of things, just like any other human being would be. But we're never allowed to explore those fears and be comforted about them.
Well,
we're always expected to be the comforter.
Yes. And that's why I want to have this conversation with both, because I know that you ladies will bring it. The good, bad, and not so good. You're going to bring it.
Yeah.
I want to ask, if you look back at both of your mothers, did you ever see anything that they were afraid of? Did they ever show any signs of being afraid of things? Any moments in their lives that you've seen?
No, speaking for my mother, I think the whole thing is, and this is parents in general, that their job is to shield the children from things. And in doing that, even if you are afraid, to help them be less afraid, you don't show any fear. And so most people that I know, I can't remember them ever saying that, oh, my dad or my mom was afraid of XYZ, because even if they were, they didn't show it. So I never saw fear. I never saw fear.
More than fair. Lia?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I don't think I saw fear in the sense of my mom was sitting there expressing all the things that she was afraid of, but I definitely feel like my mother's fears were played out in the decisions and the actions that she made, in the sense that, I think my mother was always afraid of, not being able to make ends meet or being able to pay all the bills, especially when, in the early years when I was a baby and they were still my parents were sort of still young in their marriage and had not yet established themselves in their career. So things were a bit more sketchy in the financial sense. So I don't remember my mother ever saying, I'm afraid of financial ruin, or I'm afraid we're going to lose our house. But I do remember her being very much a stickler about turn the thermostat down, turn the lights off when you leave a room. Don't, leave my door open when the AC is on, even though we didn't have an air conditioner, but just to keep the heat out. Like there were always these little things that she would do and these behaviors that I found annoying, of course, as a kid. But I'm understanding now as an adult and a parent myself that she didn't have extra money to spend if I left the door open and all the air went outside. And so she's, pumping it at full blast. Or if I left all the lights on in the house and I'm only in one room. I understand that behavior. And it's because it comes from a mentality of not necessarily fear, but maybe concern that I don't have money to pay this bill if it's above what I'm used to it being. And I'm worried that if I miss that one payment, they're going to, what the consequences of that could be. So I kind of feel like my mother's fears played out in the way in which she raised us, some of the decisions that she made, and also kind of in some of the admonitions and things that she would advise me to do as a young girl, like don't do this or don't say that, because I think it was her fear that I would be subjected to something or something negative would happen to me, or there would be some vulnerability that I had that she wouldn't be able to rectify for me. So I feel like it kind of plays out more in her actions, the things she said and didn't say, than her kind of being blatantly open and expressive of her fears.
Okay. Well, as usual, you ladies are firing, and I just want to update comments because they're coming in. Divine Right on YouTube is saying, finally, I'm catching all y'all live. Hi, Dr. Vibe.
Hey.
Yes, me and Divine Right have been talking offline because the timing's been all weird, so she's had to watch the replays.
Oh,
Yes,
wow.
So I'm glad you're here real time.
And she says, hello, my beautiful sorors. She says, we are strong. We are strong, shouldn't express emotions in public, and when we do, we are deemed as angry, bitter, overly emotional. Why can't we just express our emotions without judgment? She said her mom had the same fears as ladies' mothers. I didn't really see her until my mother was diagnosed with cancer, and that's when she said she just had to let go and let things be, still strong. And just talking about that, tomorrow night on Get Vocal on March 7th at 7 p.m., Divine Right is going to be on the Dr. Vibe show.
Yay.
I saw that.
Yes, and it's going to be a great topic of taking care of the elderly.
Mm.
It's something that a lot of us
It is an important
are not
one.
ready to do, and when it hits, it's like a bomb on you. And she has a personal experience about taking care of her mother when she was not doing well health-wise. So just want to promote that and just shine the light on her. Also on Periscope, you Foresight saying we get our coping skills from our parents. How they handle stress is usually how we handle it.
Mm.
Yep. Whether or not we admit it is another question, but it's true. The apples don't fall far from the tree.
Absolutely.
It's true.
Very, very true. Patricia is saying on Get Vocal, my mom was a small-time girl and she had the types of fears you would expect of someone getting married and immediately moving to Chicago. On the other hand, my dad grew up in Chicago and made us feel like the city was ours for the taking. LOL. So let me ask, if you compare the fears of your mothers in general, black women, as compared to the fears of today's women, same, different, less, more in your opinion? What do you think?
So, I mean, and I know Leah can better attest to this than I can because I don't have kids yet. So,
I'm just talking as a black woman. So whether you have kids or not, just a black
woman.
No.
I know, and I understand. But I'm saying in terms of firsthand knowledge.
Yeah.
I think there's this. There was always this fear for your children in terms of growing up your children growing up melanated in a world that does not value the melanated body. But now, where it's actually shown that you don't matter, where your melanated body is secondary to everybody else's, and you could actually be shot down for that, I think that's a real fear that, you're actually saying, oh Lord, I have to have that talk with my child in terms of what not to do. Things that non-melanated people don't have to worry about. And sometimes I'm like, well, it must be nice to just be and not have to worry about that. So on top of all the other problems that we have, now this is one more, that because of who I am and can't help of who I am, now I have to mitigate this type of thing. I think there's a real fear in that for Black women when it comes to their children. Again, our fears are often, just like our caring, is outside of ourselves sometimes, but I think that's one amongst other fears. Leah, you could probably give more.
Yeah, I mean, yes to everything that you just said. And I would say for me, the experience is a little bit different because, I mean, we talk about our parents fairly often on the show, and I'm biracial, so I was raised by a white woman. So I don't know what my mother's fears were for me, raising, being a white woman, raising a Black one. But now as a mother of Black children, I think some of my concerns are greater than that of my mother, because to a certain extent, even though I was a Black child in a Black body in a white world, she still was able to kind of manage the world that I navigated through, because it was still a very white world. So it was still a world that she understood. And she was, as a parent, able to protect me at that point in my life. But now I feel very helpless to protect my children, especially my son. In America, we've talked about this before. And I think the difference now is that even though the abuses that we see inflicted on people of color all the time and throughout history, that hasn't changed. It's just that it's more visible now. And so like Dr. Chachi said, there is now proof that they don't care about us, proof that they will continue to abuse and use us. And so as a parent who has to now reconcile this, because my children are exposed to this, whereas I really wasn't exposed to it, because when I was their age, there was no social media, was no internet. So I was basically able to kind of be in this little protective bubble. And because I grew up in a very whitewashed way, I was not aware of a lot of that stuff until I kind of got to college and was a young adult and started to experience and see these things firsthand. But now as a mother, every day you turn on the news, there's something new. There's some new abuse that I have to prepare my children and myself for, another conversation that I have to have that I feel resentful about, that I shouldn't have to have, because my white female counterparts don't have to have those conversations with their kids. And I don't want to take away my children's innocence or their childhood, but I also feel like I would be remiss if I don't educate my children, because they need to know how to act and how to handle themselves and how to deal with these kinds of situations. So I don't know about more worries than parents in the past have had. I just think it's different because, you know, the world in which I'm raising my kids in is not the world in which I was raised
shout
in.
out Carlos Phoenix, who's joining us on the Get Vocal platform. Man, if you want to talk about guys into technology and streaming, he the guy. So if you want to get any help with that, I just point him out. He does a lot of stuff, basically Facebook Live. So definitely check him out. And Carlos, good to have you on the conversation. One of the things I hear from my parents saying is that you guys, talking about our generation or whatever, have it so much easier than the way we had it. Has your mother ever said that, you know, you guys got it easier, and you just go, oh yeah?
No, because she made sure we had it just as hard. So, I mean, it was not, there was no picnic. I think this is a Nigerian thing. So if things are looking like they're going to be easy, there are extra tasks added just so that it's harder. So I don't have, I mean, obviously I wasn't living in the village, you know, fetching water from the stream and that type of stuff like she had to do. But it was damn near like we did things the way they did in Africa. So instead of you take the bath and you fill the whole bathtub with water. No. We did it in a bucket like the way they did in Nigeria. So you basically had to fetch and do it that way. So you felt like you were growing up in the village in Nigeria. So no, I think she was feeling that, but she made sure we did these extra things so that was not the case. So yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah. And for me, I mean, my mother would never say something like that to me, even if that's how she felt, because I don't think my mother can understand how I grew up to a certain extent. I mean, like I said, she can empathize, she can sympathize, she can even witness certain things that I experienced, but she will never experience what it's like to be me because she lives in a white body and I do not. So I don't think my mother would ever kind of compare or contrast our experiences, because just by virtue of who she is, her life is easier in some ways, period. Regardless of what time period, what technology, what progress has been made, her life will always be easier by virtue of her skin color. So maybe I have some advantages in this day and age where things are more digital, virtual, readily accessible. I can directly reach, you know, someone, as opposed to back in the day, you could only go through chains to reach people. You know, you had to go up the hierarchy, send paperwork. Now I can just tweet somebody and I'm in touch with the CEO. So in that sense, maybe, yeah, the ease and facilitation of communication, I think, is definitely easier than it was in her day. I do think it's easier now for me as a Black woman to navigate the world in terms of educational opportunities, professional opportunities. But as far as the daily life, I definitely have it harder than my mother. I will say that, just by virtue of my skin, and the way in which I am perceived by society, and the way in which she is perceived by society.
Today we did a little reflection on the past. So let me ask you both, what are the women that you associate with? Do they ever say what they're afraid of? What are some of their fears? Do you ever get into those type of conversations with some of your peers, some of your community?
Should I go, Leah, or? Okay. So as we were saying, I think we don't afford ourselves the opportunities to let the guard down and talk about things like fear. In our community, I'll just say the Black communities are not a monolith. They're different. But I'll say as a whole, fear or showing fear is seen as a sign of weakness. And one thing we don't want to be seen as weak. There's also this type of thing of not airing out your dirty laundry. And part of the thing with expressing fears is you're letting people into your innermost self, and you don't do those types of things. So I think in our community, we've been taught to be very insular, not to express these types of things, that emotion is something that is not okay. And again, that has carried on from, in this country anyway, from, go ahead.
Let me interrupt then.
Yeah.
And I'm finding it fascinating what you're saying, because a lot of what you're saying I hear is applied to men.
Yeah.
But is it also applicable to Black women?
Absolutely. 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 Yeah, I think because here's the thing, the emphasis is always on men in terms of not being, but that is just and that comes from, in this country anyway, historically, with enslaved Africans, you don't do things like show emotion, and that could be curtains for you. So we've learned how to keep things inside, not to complain, not to cry, not to do those types of things, because it's a sign of weakness, despite whatever fears, right? Whenever we look at, let's take historical figure like Harriet Tubman carrying the gun so that those weaklings that wanted to turn around, she thought, well, you just have to die. You think she wasn't scared? But there was no opportunity for her to express that, and no avenue for her to express that. And as a leader, often, and that's another thing, we're taking on so many leadership positions now. We're doing all these different things. It is not cool in those venues to express any types of fears, because fear is then also equated with incompetence. So I think we keep all of this inside, even when it comes to, talking with our girlfriends, talking with, just contemporaries. We don't do that because of the consequences of what that may mean. And we've been taught to keep everything inside. So we don't know how to let the guard down. And I think we also don't initiate these conversations. I'm just thinking about, okay, so I bring this up every time that we're both members of Delta Sigma Theta, which is fantastic, by the way. But it's a women's group. But if you think about this, or any other women's group, do we have these conversations about what are Black women afraid of? We don't have these conversations. We talk about everything else except finances and fears.
Wow. Before you go further, Leah, I just want to shout out Joseph on the Get Vocal platform. And also on YouTube, Divine Right is saying, now my grandmother, I guess a little while back, I had to catch up here. Now my grandmother was the worrier, worried too much. I think my mother almost had to be 100 times stronger, not just for me, but for her own mother, to help her lessen the fears and worry. My son wants to love the world, and he's a little oblivious. And that's what worries me, and he's very sensitive. So when he hears about a cop shooting down a Black boy, man or woman, he can't understand. Also, thank you, Shadow 3413. That's Bobby on Periscope. He's retweeted it on Periscope, and also he's saying hope all is well, Dr. Vibe, but also make sure hope is well with the two Black lady thought leaders I'm with too. So that's good. So sorry,
Bobby's awesome.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt you, Leah, but continue the. No, go ahead.
It's okay. I didn't start. Okay. Well, all I was going to add, kind of going to the point that you made in terms of some of the attributes that Dr. Tachi was describing, and your reaction was that, oh, those are usually characteristics that are attributed to men. And I kind of feel like this all feeds into a conversation that we had earlier too, about sort of the relationship between Black women and Black men. And one of the things that I hear about, or one of the things that I hear Black men saying in criticism of Black women, is that Black women are too strong. And so they go to find non-Black women who they find to be more feminine, more in traditional sort of, I guess, showing traditional characteristics of what they perceive women to be. And I find that really ironic, because the Black women have had to be strong because that has been the role that we have always had to play. And so it's funny that, they're raised by a Black woman, they probably got their strength from their Black mothers, and then they reject the very same woman because they want someone who is not as strong or strong-willed, or, whatever the attribute is. And I always find that so funny, because I'm like, if it weren't for the strength of the Black woman, where would any of us be? Including Black women. And like Tachi said, and going back to I agree with what she said about not really having the opportunity or space to allow our fears to be expressed. not only because those places and spaces don't exist, but also because I think we are afraid to express our fears because it opens us up to criticism and more vulnerability. But amongst my friends, going back to your original question, Dr. Vibe, we don't talk about it like that, but it, like I said, like how I described my mother earlier, she never had to say what her fears were. Her actions showed what her fears were. So in some of, in circles of some of my friends, I see them now starting to get to an age, for those that are without children but have always wanted children, starting to get a little more kind of frantic about, who they're dating and trying to like secure their relationships because they're afraid that they might miss their window to have children, biological children anyway. If that's their desire. And so I think there's a fear of the biological clock, a fear of not finding the right one, a fear of settling because you're so desperate to be a mother that you're just going to accept whatever this man is giving you, even though normally if you didn't have sort of that pressure of time on your back, that man wouldn't even have a shot. So I see a lot of fears playing out like that. I see people making, decisions that they're making out of fear instead of being able to make a thoughtful, not time constrained or time bound decision. Same thing with careers. I see people now at a stage of life where maybe they're in a job, but the job isn't their passion and it's not really a career, but they're afraid to step out on faith to look for another job or afraid to pursue what they really want to do because they're afraid of losing the benefits or losing the stable income or losing this or that. So I feel like the fears play themselves out in the actions or inactions that they take because of whatever reason. They don't actually say it, but they show it in what they're doing.
Really quickly. We can't hear you, Dr. Vibe, just in case.
Yeah.
You ladies are on fire. And
yeah,
I just want to say shout out to Roger Dundas, who's on Get Vocal. Him and his wonderful wife are the force behind Buy Blacks online magazine, the #1 online magazine for Black Canadians. Continue.
So there's a
Awesome.
thought just came into my head. Now, this doesn't mean it's not the case for other people, but going off of this strong Black woman, fearless Black woman trope, this could be part of the reason, beyond these people just being complete idiots and riffraff. This could be part of the reason that people feel okay denigrating Black women when it comes to certain things. Okay, so let's look at the conversation surrounding Kamala Harris. Okay, who's running? Let's look at the situations in terms of Auntie Maxine or Maxine Waters, right? The people, particularly non-melanated, the vitriol that's spewed by non-melanated men, they feel okay and just fine, saying all of this. I think part of it, a small part of it, could be because there is this, besides utter disregard, is there could be a small part of, they're Black women, they're known to be strong and it's fine. I could say whatever the hell I like and it's going to be okay. I think that's part of it, not just by non-melanated people, but also by Black men or melanated men. I think people feel okay, not just because of the blatant disregard for who we are, but because the trope out there is that we are strong. So stuff rolls off of our back like it's Mercury. That was a weird analogy, but I was thinking about how Mercury, Anyway, so like it just rolls off of our back. I think that's part of it. Not, I'm not saying it's all of it, but I think subconsciously that's part of it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I do feel like there's this attitude that, they can take it. So they continue to dish it out and we have taken it. That's why. So it's kind of like one of those negative things happening because we have been able to endure in the past. So because that's sort of been the trope, as you say, the behavior continues, even though there is no basis for it. The basis is just that because we have, so shall we continue.
It's like that. I can't remember, but one of my friends loves to put this out there all the time, and I can't remember who it was, whether it was James Weldon Johnson or who it was. It was the poet. I can't remember. It will come. Langston Hughes. Something to the effect of the Negro, so mild, meek, and kind. Beware of when they change their mind. So. That's all I'll say. Beware of when we change our mind.
So what is holding what is keeping Black women strong, giving a strong appearance even to each other? Because I find it interesting, because I always hear, that Black women, they're open with each other, they're good with each other, etc. And they're very open, and they're more open than Black men are with each other. Why is this not so? Like, I thought Black women, they hang out, they talk, etc. But you're telling me again that this is a perception and it's an assumption, and maybe I'm making the wrong assumption. Then what is holding back that what's the word I'm looking for? That aura amongst each other.
You want to go, Lia?
What do you think?
I mean, if I'm understanding your question, is it sort of like the treatment within Black women towards one another, or?
Many years ago, I did not have many Black women on my platform, and I started just having conversations with Black women offline. I say, hey, we needed to get together, and the first conversation they had was Black women's relationships with each other, and it wasn't always a rosy picture.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to that. I'll just say that some of my best and worst experiences with peers have been with Black women. So my best friendships, my deepest friendships, my most meaningful friendships are all with Black women. But some of the most trying, challenging, stressful situations that I have also experienced have also been with Black women. But I think that just shows that we're like anybody else. You can have both amazing experiences and negative ones with Black women. But I also don't think that makes us unique. I think that I've had those experiences with Black women because I'm a Black woman. So that is who I'm around. So if I were a white man, I would probably say the same thing, that some of my best relationships are with other white men, and some of my most negative relationships have been with other white men. I think it's just more of you are who you know, and who you know is who you are, because that's who you identify with. That's who you intimately understand, even without really knowing anything about them, just because you share these certain characteristics. So you sort of have this sameness. So you're attracted to that because it's familiar. So, I mean, I do think this isn't unique to Black women, but I do think women's relationships with one another is it's complicated, because I do feel like there's this desire to have a sisterhood and to really support one another, but we're like any other human being, and we're competitive. We want to be the best. We want to show what we've got and be better than somebody else. We are jealous. We're, we're multi-passionate, multifaceted, feeling the same. I could be feeling angry and love someone at the same time. And, and I don't, like I said, I think that's not special for Black women. That's just being a human being. So, I mean, yes, I've heard tell of other Black women complaining about their relationships with Black women, but again, I just think it stems from, intragender, intraracial, natural dynamics in relationships. Because like I said, I feel like the same could be said for Black men with other Black men, white men with white men, white women with white women. It's not different.
Joins in on it. Roger saying Lia is keeping it real, and Divine Right is saying,
I'm trying, Roger.
Heck, there are some Black women who are intimidated by other Black women because of their insecurities.
Yes, exactly. But then that also, I just want to say to that, and then I'll yield, is that the insecurities aren't because they're a Black woman. It's because that individual is insecure. We are all insecure as human beings. Like, I just think it's human nature. It's just a fundamental human nature. I don't know that it's race or gender
Absolutely, Soror Lia. And I do agree. I agree 100%. I think, though, to add to that society has done a really good job of making sure Black women are insecure. Wow. So there are things that are thrown into the cogs that are thrown into the wheel to make sure that you're insecure. So I think there is not to say that our level of insecurity is more than anybody else. Not at all. In fact, we're not allowed to show levels of insecurity. So sometimes you don't even know that that's the fact or the case. But yeah, we do have insecurities, and society has done a really good job of making sure that you stay insecure, because when you're insecure, you don't try to achieve more room for you to then get ahead. So that's a whole other dynamic.
Yes. And I would add to that, I would add to what Tachi said, because she's right. In addition to society throwing things into the fire to make women, Black women specifically, feel more insecure, they also throw out this trope or this sort of fake false narrative that Black women are terrible towards each other and with each other by all these reality TV shows where there's all this, like, you know, catfighting and bitch, you had said this and you had took my man and like all this other crazy stuff. And people take that on face value as if that's really real. It's not. Reality TV isn't real. It's scripted. So I'm like, number one, that's not real. They're there making their money. Don't be fooled. Don't buy into the hype. But that's what people see. They don't see, you know, everyone getting along, going to have a girls' brunch. Let's go have a shopping trip. Let's take a girls' trip. They just see the cattiness, the infighting, the backstabbing. I'm gonna steal his man. I slept with that person. Because that's what sells. That's entertainment. And somehow it gets extrapolated from the entertainment realm into reality. And so there's a perception that, oh, Black women are horrible with each other, when I think that's not fair and that's not necessarily true. And it's unfortunate because that's what's perpetuated, but it isn't real. It's just like how people like outside of the United States, back in the 80s and 90s, I'm thinking of specifically, when still today they do this, but back then they were consume every single movie that came out of the United States. And that consumption became what they perceived as, oh, this is how all Black people are. They're either athletes or they're, you know, a musician or an actor, or they speak with slang, or everyone speaks with ebonics, or, you know, American is the country of jeans and Coca-Cola and apple pie. They got this perception because of movies, and that is the only perception that they were taking in. So I think that we have the same problem domestically from our very own entertainment that we want. And that's why they keep giving it to us, because people want it. So they give people what they want, but it serves the lowest common denominator.
Absolutely. Because I don't know women who behave like that, because I don't put myself in the company of women who behave like that. There are more women who don't behave like that than not. Yet I will say it is our fault, because the only reason that type of stuff is allowed to exist on, quote, reality TV is because we allow it to exist. I will point to Exhibit A of when Mona Scott Young had sorority sisters. Did not the four sororities shut that mess down? We absolutely did, because we didn't agree with how we were being portrayed. Imagine if we took that same energy and put that on Basketball Wives, put that on all the other places where Black women and women of color were being shown being terrible to each other. But like you said, we want that, right? The public wants that. So since the public wants that, producers will produce that. So I also blame us. I'm also tired of people being lazy. I have no desire to educate lazy people. And people could say, oh, but well, no, then you do it. I am not educating lazy people. My for the past 2 years, my catchphrase has been Google it, witch, because I'm not going to say the B word. If I can do it and take my time then so can you. I'm not doing the work for you. So I'm tired of people, well, because I saw this in the media, this is what I think. I understand that's where it comes from. It's up to you to do your due diligence and research. I'm tired of lazy people. That is a lazy cop-out to, even in other countries. I don't want to hear it, because the standard of education is much higher in other countries than it is here. Primary education is much higher. So the fact that you didn't have the good common sense God gave two smashed ants to go and look this up, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. It's bloody lazy. Do the damn work.
Oh, wow.
Exactly. Oh, the last thing I'll say in this point, and then we can move on, is that because that's what society wants, I feel like, because that's what society wants, I feel like they consume that. So that's what they produce. And then those who want that to be true will use those shows and that behavior as their truth and their stereotypes against all Black women, because we're all of a sudden homogenous and we're all like that. So that's how they do it. So it becomes, the perception becomes reality, because it really is.
Absolutely.
What you perceive is what's real to you. So if people want to believe that, they'll see a show that perpetuates that. So it must be true that Black women are like this and do this. And act like that and do all these crazy things. And that's just not the case. And like Tachi said, and like some of the folks are saying in the comments, that is a false narrative. Like I said, it's not true, but it's our fault because we allow them to continue to produce that show. We consume that show. It's everyone's guilty little secret to watch one of those shows, but we don't have anything out there to counter it. Yes, we now have Grownish and Blackish, but I don't feel like the same people who are watching the real reality shows are consuming both. I just think it's a different audience. So
things are going at a very good pace here. Just reading some of the comments here. Carlos says she got quotes. I think he's referring to Encyclopedia Brown, and well,
I think he was talking about Tachi when she did the Langston Hughes quote.
That's true.
It could be both of us. We've both been saying some stuff.
Roger's saying, I agree, all races experience the same issues. Carlos saying she's on point. Curtis is saying that's what we allow them to see. And Carlos is saying that portion of the entertainment industry is controlled by white companies. He says he worked in the first season of The Real World. Curtis says it also helps to keep the false narrative. They continue to present it to the public. Carlos is saying which is worse than the B word.
I love the word witch. Love it.
And Curtis is saying yes, Leah. So just going to continue on. In the up and coming generation of Black women, do you feel that they will be more transparent than the generations of Black women before them?
I mean, I don't know about transparent, but I definitely feel like there seems to be, with the younger generations, much more acceptance of who they are and much more comfort in their own skin. So I think that if, they will accept others in the same way. So, I mean, I think that there will always be that same sort of like, I guess, deep intrinsically buried within us, same sense of competition, same sense of keeping up with the Joneses, same sense of if she has that, I want that too. But I do feel like now a lot of things that Black women in the past were unable to express because it wasn't a good thing to express, that you maybe are gay, that you're, you don't want to get married, that you don't want to have a child, that you do. These things, I think those taboos have been kind of stripped away. So I kind of feel like for the younger generations, and I really hope for the younger generations, that they have that freedom to just be who they are and be comfortable in that. Just be, like Dr. Tachi said earlier. I do feel like the new generation has that freedom if they choose to walk in it and to own it and accept it. And I do see a lot of younger women doing that. I don't know that that means that they're going to be exempt from some of the trappings and entrapments that have plagued Black women past, but I do feel like it's going to be different by virtue of who they are and how they present to the world. And just that because they're able to, they have the freedom to do it because of our generation and generations before us fighting for their ability to be who they are.
What are your thoughts about the next generation when it comes to, will they be more open to talk about what they're afraid of?
I agree with Leah, and I would say yes. I think one of the things now is that you see therapy being more prevalent than you did years ago, whereas you didn't air your dirty laundry again to other people. There are still generations of Black women that feel that way, right? But this newer, younger generation where therapy is made a thing, like it's okay, to share those thoughts and to share those fears and the things that you have to deal with. I think that because of that's one aspect where we're seeing young women, particularly the young Black women, open up more. I mean, I've even talked to, some people that I know, and they talk about, needing to, being in therapy and needing to deal with it because of the world we live in. Whereas before that was not something they did, went to therapy, but now they're doing it because of everything that's going on. And they're sharing fears. They're sharing those types of things just simply because you will explode if you don't. And what happens is when you keep these things bottled up, they manifest themselves in other detrimental ways. So I think that young women now are starting to see that. And there's more of a freedom, just like Lia said, in terms of expression and expressing what they are afraid of. So I say yes, that I see young women doing more of that.
And it's, as we're starting to wind down the conversation, there's a lot of people in the Get Vocal room making comments. And interesting, the majority of them are men, which is
no, but that's good. That's good.
That's a good thing. That's what we want. And the men in the room, and the lady has expressed about her mother. And so, gentlemen, please feel free to add commentary about, do you see or do you ever hear or encounter Black women that are afraid, or women that, what are they afraid of, especially Black women? Roger goes, these women are on fire. No, they're on fire. F-I-Y-A-A. They're on that kind. They're on that fire. And Carlos is saying
fire. Exactly.
We have yes, fire.
Fire.
Yes. And Carlos is saying in the Latin community we have similar issues. Also, right? Was saying on the here we go. It says Divine Right is saying on YouTube, it's sad sometimes when you do express your fears. And this happened to me, and they didn't know what to do with what I was expressing. They distanced themselves from me. Very sad.
I know what she's talking about.
Yeah, and Black and
it was sad. Friendships ended over it. Long-term friendships were ended when people showed who they really were.
Hard.
Yeah, it is. And unfair, completely unfair. But people, it goes kind of back to what Tachi was saying earlier. People don't want to do the work. They just don't. And that means taking the time to understand really where your friend is, what's going on with them, where they're coming from, and just figuring out how best to be supportive and just staying there, just giving what you can when you can, instead of kind of judging that person for expressing a vulnerability or weakness. And like I said, we've been taught to do that. So now that's why partially we don't, because we've been taught that you're weak if you say those things. So when you express that, I actually think it reflects strength, but I'm in the minority for saying that, because we were raised that if we express a weakness or a sadness or vulnerability, then you are weak, and some
absolutely. And I would go further. There was a particular, I don't know if I talked about this, but there was a particular lesson that I learned, that I am not a psychiatrist or a medical doctor, so to shut up when it comes to these things. I had a friend who is non-melanated, and I used to, when I first got here, I used to spend the night at her house on Tuesdays because stupidly I sold my car thinking I could take public transportation. Learned that lesson really hard, really quickly. And so because she lived nearby the university, I would stay with her, and it was fun. We would stay there. But, one thing is that non-melanated women feel a lot more comfortable getting therapy if they need to take drugs, doing that. So, of course, we come from the school of thought when it comes to that type of thing. Oh, please, all you need is Jesus. You'll be all right. Just meditate. Go get a. So I came from the school of thought. I'm one that doesn't like to take medicine. And so stupidly, I thought, well, then nobody needs medicine. You can work this out. And I just made a comment when she said she needed to go refill her. I said, do you really want to be on those for the rest of your life? Stupidly. And she said, well, no, I don't. I'm going to try to. Oh, why did I say that? This girl, because when she stopped taking them, she called me and she was like, oh gosh, I'm so feeling suicidal and stuff. So one of us, like of her friends, we had to stay with her at all times to make sure she was okay. But the point is that she felt okay going to the doctor, expressing these things to friends. These are not things we feel okay saying. You dare not ever say you feel suicidal or anything. Because that's not what Black people do. We don't commit suicide. We don't have mental illness. This is the Black folk don't think, when we absolutely do. Maybe it's not to the same numbers or documented the same way, but we absolutely do. And so I think, that was a lesson in not only be quiet about what you don't know, but also the fact that it's interesting that non-melanated women have the spaces and feel comfortable to seek help when they need help, whereas we don't, because we consistently have to be strong.
Yes. So I'll just add quickly a little anecdote there too, that one of the conversations that I'm having with some of my mentees who are, I'd say anywhere from like 15 to 10 years younger than me, many of them have expressed that they are in therapy or they are seeing, a counselor or whatever. And my reaction to them is good. If you feel that it serves you, if it's helping you, if you're able to process the things that you are questioning or struggling with or wrestling with, then continue to do it. There shouldn't be a taboo around it. Like I said, white people have been going to therapists for years. Like, it's just normal to them. It's not a big deal. Like, if someone says, "Oh, I'm going to see my therapist," no one bats an eye. But if someone in our community says that, it's all of a sudden like, "Oh, what's wrong with that person? Something's wrong." It's like we jump on the bandwagon of somehow that makes them something different. And I just think that is wrong. So I'm like, people have to do what's best for them. And I do think that more people should take advantage of mental health services, even if it's just therapy. I mean, I do feel like there's some value in just talking stuff out. And talking out with a neutral party who is not invested, doesn't know you, and can give you an objective opinion about whatever it is that you're going through. And I really wish that, as a community, we would kind of, I guess, become a little more progressive, a little more like current with our thoughts and our opinions on that particular, aspect of our lives, because we need it, especially now. I just feel like all of us are drowning in this negativity constantly. Even if we try not to welcome that in our lives, it surrounds us all the time because of things politically, the economy, the struggle of daily life, just getting through. It's all hard. And that's just assuming everything else is normal, like that you have shelter, you have employment, you have your health. So then imagine if you don't have those things too. So, as far as I'm concerned, I really want us to move away from this demonization of people who want to seek and need counseling or treatment or need to be on medicine.
Okay,
we just need to move away from it and be supportive.
Welcome to Cliff on the Get Vocal platform. Carlos says it's all a lot of work. It's undoing hundreds of years of a broken culture. Curtis says, I think for many Blacks, we're afraid that our issues may be used against us should certain issues arise. Also on the YouTube platform, Divine Right says, God forbid you say you're in therapy. Forget it. Really chase folks away, and that's really okay. We have to do what we need to do so we can be good. Getting therapy is not a weakness, that's strength. You Foresight
Exactly.
You too says be non-judgmental, and talking to someone who can be non-judgmental is huge. It's not what you talked about, but who you talk to, and if they can really help with what you tell them. Also, Divine Right, mental health piece could be an epic show in itself. It will be, because we're going to do it. And also, it's something we can keep talking about.
Yes.
And it's a needed conversation continually. So I have a feeling what we're going to be chatting about in about a week or two. I also want to say welcome to Tony on the Get Vocal platform, also joint specialists. There we go. Doc, bring up your volume a few notches. That's a difficulty on my end, so sorry about that. Got to work it out with the computer. Ladies, I'm not going to keep you on much longer because you've been epic as always, and you both had long days. Carlos is also saying what is worse is that we are all moving in a world that will use social media to build personality profile against us on hiring, health, and more. Good.
It's true. I have to just add to Carlos's point because he's absolutely right. I mean, so right now I'm in the process of preparing to go overseas for my day job for my next assignment. And my husband is trying to get a job at the international school in Armenia, which is where we're going. And thankfully he has his contract and everything. But what I thought was so strange is part of his onboarding process, they asked for all of his social media.
Wow.
They asked for it. They ask for his social media. So like they want to see if he's on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And if he is, what is he saying? What is he doing? Because people do look now. I think it's actually very common for people to look at people's social media to get a picture of who you really are. Because what you put on your resume is not always in line with what you put on your social media. Yeah, exactly. Hello, they do want to check that. They do, but he already scrubbed his face, so we ain't got
well done.
Only the date night photos are there,
There
so you
you
can
go.
see just
Well,
pictures of black love.
ladies, we're going to end it up. So what we're going to do is just get some final comments. And we always like to leave on a positive note and some action points. So first off, we're going to go with Lia.
Okay. So I think this has been a really good and interesting conversation, and I think it could go a lot of ways, but I think my main takeaways would be that, yes, Black women have fears. Yes, we're afraid just like anybody else. Yes, we're vulnerable. And I think that what I would encourage all of us to do is to allow us to be, allow ourselves to be, because I feel like we're kind of stunted as human beings if all we can present is strength and endurance, because at a point, that's why a lot more of us are going to therapy, because we can't. There is a breaking point. There is, we need to find a way to recharge those batteries so that we can live to fight another day. And I think, I'm looking at my Black brothers in particular and other Black women, that we just need to be more supportive of that. Stop putting that weight on a Black woman's shoulders. Don't always expect her to be the strong Black woman and then demonize and hate on her and blame her for it. Let her be weak. Let her cry. Let her struggle. And then be there to help her get back on her feet so she can be strong for you the next day. I just feel like we're at a stage where we should allow each other to be whole human beings. And yes, I think Black women will always be strong. It's just who we are. But we're more than that, and we should allow
people want to find out more about you, because every time you come on, there's something new about you.
I got to slow down. I would kill myself.
At least you're being open. You're not being afraid.
Now, I'm not being afraid. I'm expressing vulnerability, though. I would just say you can find me at LIA World Traveler across social media. You can find me on Facebook, on my blog, on Instagram, and then on Twitter, I'm at Lia World Travels. Soon you'll be able to find me on Madame Noir, and you will be able to find me. Oh, thanks, Cliff. And you'll be able to find me soon on Urban Intellectuals, probably Leah Miller or Lia World Traveler. But those names. And I just put out an article today on Griots Republic, a new travel piece for off the beaten travel destinations in Japan. So if anyone has any upcoming trips to Japan, you might want to check that out. And I will share all of those links and links to my social media and links to that article in the message box area in a few minutes. So thank you again for letting me be here. And again, Lia World Traveler and
Curtis says,
LIA.
where's the offering plate? So
pass it, Church. I got bills to pay and 2 kids to raise, so come on.
Tachi.
Got to put them through college.
So I have to agree with Lia. Absolutely. Allow us the space to be vulnerable. Really, I think one of the things that we have to do, particularly with melanated people, Black people in particular, we need to let go of the things that caused us to have to be strong. We still operate from a standpoint of slavery. We still operate from a standpoint of oppression. And we still feel, and it still is there. The slave mentality still exists. Oppression still exists, absolutely. But that has become our existence, and this is why we have to be so strong. So because of that, we can't let down our guard. And I think we need to have to understand that it's okay. We need to create these safe spaces, which we do in a lot of places, but create these safe spaces and allow them to be safe spaces for you to be vulnerable, because it's not going to come down overnight. Simply because a few Black folks have gone to therapy doesn't mean that these old ways are going to die down. They're not. So little by little, we can let the guard down in these safe spaces. And it's going to take time, because it didn't take 2 years to create a slave mentality. It was constant beating over the head, literally and figuratively, with how one should behave. So it's going to take a long time to dismantle it. So that's my final thought. And you can find me in a lot of different places. Every Wednesday, right before this at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, I host Mediascope, which is a show that talks all about media tech and pop culture news, the best in media tech and pop culture news. And that is on Periscope at Tachiata, which is the same as my Twitter handle. I'll put this all in the chat.
Comment.
Also on the comments, yes. Also, I do a pre-show at 5-ish on Instagram Live. So you can find me on Instagram at Dr_Tachi. So that's Dr_TACHI. If you want to watch Mediascope on Facebook, you can find it on at Mediascope 16. I'm also the co-host of the TV Channeling podcast with Kevin in LA and Kevin Williams in LA. And that is at tvchanneling.com and every major podcasting platform.
You left out one thing, and that lady would not be happy if
yes, okay. No, that's true. And so both shows are also, I thought about that when I stopped. I'm like, is he going to let me correct? So both shows, both TV Channeling and Mediascope are also on WJMSradio.com. So every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, you can listen to TV Channeling on WJMSradio.com. And we are live at the same time we broadcast on Periscope and Facebook Live, right? Mediascope. We're live on WJMSradio.com at 6 p.m. on Wednesdays.
Boom! She got it all. I like that. Oh, this is fantastic. It's good.
Too
and
impressive.
Very nice.
Too impressive.
Well, geez. Myself is
That's
just
the
best place to go for everything is my website, drvibeshow.com. There's, Cliff says, I'm tired, but phew.
Me too, Cliff. That's what I'm just like, wow. She
these
is
wonderful Black Lady Magic ladies are always growing. So every time they come on, there's something new going on. And I know Leah only shared 50% at the beginning. That's a whole other conversation piece. Incredible ladies, boom. Cliff says, I could go through all my different stuff, but I'm just going to leave it at that. The best place, and I'm going to put it in the chat, is drvibeshow.com. Tell you where you can hear all my epic conversations via podcast, via vidcast, via YouTube, Get Vocal platform, all that sort of stuff. The thing I'd like to add is that I tell people every Superman and every Superwoman has their kryptonite. And if you're able to admit what your kryptonite is and deal with it, then you're going to become even more super. So I'm just going to leave it at that. And then all the thing I'll say, you don't have to be perfect all the time. You just have to be perfect at the right time. That's what really counts. So on that, I'm going to see if I can remember shout out everybody who is on the conversation. Patricia, Curtis, Carlos, Herbie, who have been since the beginning of this epic conversation on Get Vocal. Thanks, Cliff, for stopping in. Yes. Tony, we still have a conversation to do. Roger, yes, absolutely, Roger. Thank you so much. Let me just check on the YouTube platform, Divine Right, U4Sight for you too, and also Black Ambassadors. Thank you so much for making up a conversation. On Periscope, Bobby Shadow, Django, thank you so much for dropping by for the conversation. Anyone else? I forgot you. If I did, it's because of my head, not my heart. And this was the first Get Vocal conversation we did that was also broadcast live on Facebook. So the platforms are growing. So as I always like to say, a few last things. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Next up, sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. And especially with this conversation, block assumptions. And finally, aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. God bless, peace to all, keep the faith, walk good. And tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Serena Wills, aka Divine Right, will be here talking about taking care of the elderly. That is another epic conversation you want to catch. God bless, peace to all, keep the faith, and we'll see you tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Be well.